Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. We're excited that you're here, and we would love for you to like or subscribe to the podcast, or tell your friends about it, and hopefully they'll come and like and subscribe as well. What we're all about here is real life, real people, real answers. Actually, that's wrong. It's real people, real life, real answers. Same thing, different order. But we're all about that. They get it.
They get it.
And we're all about that. And so what we do on each podcast, if you've not been with us, is you guys submit questions, and we're provided those questions, and they're actually on a card. And so we will open the card and we will answer the question. We will discuss the question.
And we do not know what the question is.
And hopefully throughout, the interaction that we have, there's something that you can take away. You'll learn something about us, which get to know us a little bit better. And in addition, hopefully you'll learn something that will help you in your life. So we've got a question. And so are you ready for the question?
I'm ready as I
We're
ever
ready to
will
go.
be.
All right, well, here it is. Can addiction to a good thing be bad? And an example is that one person volunteers at church so much or often or within so many ministries that their marriage and or family suffers. That's sort of an example of what we're getting at with the question. So the question again is this: Can addiction to a good thing be bad? You want me to start, or would you like to start?
Well, I think with anything that there's got to be balance in your life in every area, as well as, as good as you can balance something. Right. So I would say that if you spend more time on anything, a hobby, an addiction, good or bad, that if that takes away time from what's the most important thing in your life, your family time, your spouse, that it can be a bad thing.
Yeah. I think for me, the word addiction, it sort of sets the tone a little bit. You can spend more time than you should on something that's not bad, and it not really be an addiction.
Right.
But if you're addicted to something, I mean, where it's driving you, it's
something good,
shaping your decisions, what you do, where you spend your time. And if you're obsessed with it and and you're just always focused on that thing, I think that can be bad, even for good things.
Well, I would say that anything that you put, like I already said, above your family, above your spouse, I'm not going to be happy.
Right.
If you spend more time on something, a hobby, an addiction, than you spend with me, or if we had children at home that you spent with them, that's not going to make me happy. That's not healthy at all. I don't think for a relationship, not healthy at all.
Yeah. I think, again, any addiction, if it's not handled, if you're not handling something appropriately, it can be bad. And when you start spending an inordinate amount of time on, let's just break it down and talk about for a moment. Think about hobbies for a moment. Mm-hmm. I mean, people do become addicted to hobbies. I've had friends throughout the course of the years that have become addicted, for instance, to fishing. There's nothing wrong with having a hobby. There's nothing wrong with enjoying fishing. But they become addicted to it to the point that they start spending money on that hobby that they don't have to spend on the hobby.
Right.
They start spending a whole lot of time and taking away valuable family time, or even in ministry, maybe not coming to church because they got to go fishing. Right. Those kind of things. And I'm not picking on fishermen right now. Okay, it could be anything. But the fact of the matter is, it could be hunting. It could be anything.
Right.
It could be literally something that's maybe in other ways not really harmful, but they're all kind of addictions. I'm going to say something here, and it's probably
I don't like the look on your face
It'll get
right
people
now.
stirred up. But sometimes parents get addicted to their children, and I know that's
Opening a big old can of worms.
I know
right
that sounds a little bit weird, but God
Yeah.
God has given you children. He's called you to be a parent.
Right.
He's called you to be a parent to that child. He's not even called you to be that child's best friend, which would be a great another podcast. He's called you to be that child's parent. But some parents literally get addicted to parenthood to the point that it's all about that. And it literally, two parents start having problems in their relationship because there's an addiction to the children, if you will. It becomes so
Right.
much about the children, they don't pay attention to their own relationship.
Yeah.
That can be bad. All of a sudden, it becomes so addicted to the children that it's all about getting the children involved in baseball, basketball, cheerleading, whatever it is. They get them involved in 5,000 things. It becomes so much about them. We're not going to church anymore because, they've got all these ball games on the weekend when there's like a 0.0000001% chance their child will ever become a professional athlete, but there's a 100% chance they're going to go to heaven or hell. But
Right.
you don't worry about that. I think there can be an addiction. That's a great thing to love and care for your children, but there can literally become an addiction where it becomes all about trying to get them involved in all these things, or it's all about that and nothing else in the world matters. Well, that's not the way God created us or even the way He wants us to behave.
Right. And sometimes I think the kids can get burned out with that too. But, we talked about fishing, we talked about hunting. A lot of addictions on that, hunting, fishing, tennis, golf, whatever it may be, you can involve your family in that too.
Yeah.
I think that you can, if you go fishing, why would you want to go fishing by yourself?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to take? And we might get answers to that after this podcast. But you can. That's really a great time to involve your family in something that you love.
Yeah.
If you're, I can see, if you go golfing, maybe not, but I think that you got to try to involve your family in that. I'm up for fishing.
Yeah.
We used to do that together.
Yeah.
So any kind of hobby, I don't know why you would always want to do something like that alone, that you could involve your family. I can see you wanting to have time for yourself, 100%. Because, I don't like you always going with me when I go shopping. I like you to stay home.
And I want to go back for a moment to what I said a moment ago, because the reason that I brought that up about being addicted to children is that sometimes when you start talking about being addicted to something, people sort of immediately turn you off. They go, "I'm not addicted to anything.
Right.
I'm not addicted to a sport. I don't have
They think
a hobby.
of something
They think
like-
of all this, and they don't think of the thing that's closest to home.
Right.
That can become an obsession. It can become an addiction.
Well, they
It
don't
can
see it as a bad thing.
as a bad thing.
It's
And
recreation to
obviously,
them.
loving your family, doing things with your family,
Right.
all those things are critically important. But if they become like an addiction where they, just focusing on that supersedes everything else, takes
Mm-hmm.
away from your spiritual life, from coming to church, from worship, from doing those kind of things. If it takes away from the two people involved, the parents in the relationship or whatever, when it comes to children, that's what I was talking about.
Right.
What I was saying a moment ago. But something else too. I think theologically, there's a part to this that's theological. There's always a part to everything that's theological. But the part to that is this: anything that becomes an obsession or an addiction in our life becomes an idol in our life.
Right.
We put that thing before God, and in anything that comes before God is an idol. And even the Big Ten says not to worship idols. I mean, so that's something that's not pleasing to God. And that's never a good thing when we put something before God. So I think good things can become bad things if we don't manage them correctly and we're not careful.
Right. And this is probably off topic a little bit, but in our world today, in our society, they're having t-ball games, dance, cheer on a Sunday. And I know when I was growing up, you didn't have anything on a Wednesday night or a Sunday
Yeah.
because that was church days.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it's difficult for parents that their children want to be in something and then they're forced
Yeah.
to say, you can't do it at all, or we're going to have to miss some church to do it. And I can see sometimes when that would fall on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, our grandkids are in things that once in a while they fall on a Sunday and they have to miss, but it's rare.
Yeah. But you know, when we're talking about addiction, so and you just mentioned culture in society today. So now I'm going to really just offend everybody. Okay. You know, probably one of the things that people don't realize they're addicted to, and probably 98% of the population is addicted to, that causes a lot of problems in your life and takes away from family time, is your phone. I mean, you know, so many people can't walk to the restroom without taking their phone. How many times do we sit in restaurants? We'll go out to eat, and we're sitting in a restaurant, and you
It was
pay
it was
attention
the
to this.
anniversary for a couple we watched.
Yeah, we watched an anniversary, a couple that was at a restaurant we were eating in, and they were celebrating their anniversary because sometimes restaurants, when you go to eat, they'll put out rose petals on the table and they'll have the little card for your anniversary. Well, this couple was celebrating their anniversary. And so we're 15 minutes into our meal, and Nancy looks over at me and she says, that couple, this young, beautiful, attractive young couple, are probably celebrating a few years of marriage together. And they have been on their phones the entire time they've been at the table, and they've not spoken 5 words to each other. I've noticed that. They're addicted to that.
And if you look around, we talk about it now that we're aware of that, we will say, look at that couple, they're on their phones. So I would say that's a pretty good point that you made. I don't think about, and I didn't even think about a phone being an addiction. But I would say in this culture, yes,
Yeah.
a phone is. Sometimes I hate them.
Yeah. Well,
We've had this conversation because on porch time, it's easy to, if you get a text or something and you pick it up, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at mine, you're looking at yours. So we say no phones.
Yeah.
Absolutely no phones.
and I think you have to be careful. A phone is not a bad thing.
No.
And you know, when you look at that device that we call our phone today, it's not just a phone. It's a calendar. It's a camera.
Your life is in there.
That we use.
Your
There's
life
so
is
many
in
things
there.
that we use to manage our life. We keep our schedules on there. All those things. None of those things are bad. But we've got to be willing to walk away from those things, and because it can literally become an addiction to where it's like an appendage. It's like attached to our body, and we can't do anything without it.
Right.
And to me personally, let's talk about that for a moment. I think to me, like if I go into a meeting with someone, a one-on-one meeting, and their phone keeps buzzing and they keep looking at their phone, it just says to me that I'm not important and this meeting isn't important.
Or that thing right there.
Yeah. You know, actually, and I do. I have an Apple Watch, and so this vibrates and all that, and I've got everything turned off on mine. I don't really need this.
It says you're not listening to me.
Yeah.
If you keep checking your phone as your wife, that's what it's saying to me. If you pick up your phone, if I'm in the middle of something and you pick it up, it's like, okay, you really were not listening to me, and that starts trouble. Just like the question.
And when you can't live without that, it's like an addiction. When you can't live without that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I never thought about the phone being an addiction, and that can cause a lot of problems in your family.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're ignoring your children and.
Yeah.
You know, I think there should be a time you put it up when you get home and don't look at it.
Yeah. I read about a restaurant. Actually, I'll tell you who it was. That it was. I read an article about the people that did Fixer Upper. Was it Chip and Joanna Gaines?
Yes.
And they, out in Texas where they have their business and they have the silo thing and they have the shops you go in, they build a restaurant. And in the restaurant out there, they have baskets on the wall. And when you go eat in their restaurants, you have to put your phone in a basket on the wall before you can go in, because they want you to have FaceTime at the table instead of looking at your phone at the table.
I would love to know what the outcome would be if families started doing that. If families, when you walked in the house from the end of your day, and I know it's hard to do it because of someone, you had an emergency.
Because you're addicted to it. Go ahead.
But if people had a basket and they said, okay, all phones in the basket now that we're home, all phones, especially until at least the kids go to bed. And because you can discuss, don't pick your phone up or whatever. Yeah. But I would love to know what a difference that would make in your family if you did that for 1 week, if you tried that for 1 week. I mean, maybe y'all need to try it and let us know, what a difference that made in your life.
It's funny. Now, I know we've gone from addiction.
We have stepped on all kinds of toes today.
But what's really interesting is that at my age, I grew up in an era where we didn't have cell phones when I was young. And it's so funny how things have changed. When you were at home and you just had a phone, like a landline, and it would ring, everybody used to argue over who had to answer the phone. We would say, "No, you answer the phone. I don't want to answer the phone. Who's calling us?" And now it's so completely different. It's like just everything buzzes. Oh, got it. But we're addicted. But that's just one thing and I think the reason we're talking about it so much is because it's so prevalent,
right?
And it affects so many people, and sometimes we never realize that it's literally like an addiction. We're addicted to this. I can't live without this, and it's probably not a bad idea to maybe have some little exercises. What's real, and I don't know,
sit at the table together and have dinner.
How sad is it that you have a young family and there's children there, and instead of engaging with the children, let's just be honest, we hand them iPads and give them games to play at the dinner table, and the parents are sitting there texting. Mm-hmm. We went out to dinner a couple years ago, and one of the local high school principals comes to our church, and we went, and they went out to dinner, and we were having a conversation about all of this.
It was prom,
and so they said they went out to dinner into a local restaurant, and it was prom night, and her husband was telling me that all these young ladies came in and they were dressed so elegantly and beautiful for the prom, and the young guys had their tuxes on and they were all looking good, and said they all sat down at a round table with like 8 or 10 students. And he said, I looked over at my wife, who's the principal, and he goes, they're all on their phones. They're not looking at each other. They're not talking. She goes, oh, they're talking. They were all sitting at the table together, texting each other instead of interacting.
Right.
There's an addiction to this. And so I think that's something maybe we've leaned into a little more heavily than we expected.
That could be a whole podcast if we talk about
But addictions,
family and electronics.
But any kind of addiction, you can be addicted to television. And you can be addicted to where, you're going to watch television at certain times and you don't pay attention to your family the way that you should. You can be addicted to all kind of things that in and of themselves are not bad.
Right.
So is it bad when
balance?
Yes, it's bad even if a good thing becomes an addiction. You need balance. I think that's the answer is balance. And I think that so often in life, in so many things in life, not just this, but in lots of things in life, but in this as well, I think that it's really important that we are self-aware. Emotional intelligence is a big deal. There's been all these studies on emotional intelligence that says emotional intelligence is the predictor of success in life and in business and those kind of things. Emotional intelligence is, first of all, being self-aware and being able to manage yourself. And then it's being socially aware and being able to manage relationships. And being able to do those things well determines how emotionally intelligent you are. It all begins with self-awareness. And so we need to be aware that, hey, I'm spending too much time on this phone. I'm spending too much time on this hobby. I'm not spending enough time with my family. It's a lot easier to deal with yourself and change yourself than it is to change other people. But it can start, I guess what I'm saying is, if we're going to deal with an addiction, if we're going to try to improve something where we sense there's a problem, we have to take the initiative individually. That's where it begins, with self-awareness.
But if you don't have self-awareness and your spouse comes to you and says, you're spending too much time on fill in the blank, I feel like don't get upset over it. Right. Don't take it personally. They're just wanting more time with you. They're not trying to say, accusing you of something.
Right.
Just saying, hey, I want more time with you. Our kids want more time with you.
Right.
And then I think part of the question was about even at church, like volunteering at church. And what I would say is, if that's going on, make it a family affair. It was there was a family on Facebook Sunday, and they were all saying, we're serving here, and me and my sister are here, and my husband's serving here. They said, we love serving as a family.
Right.
So, you could do something. If the other people in the family aren't serving, only one person, and you think they're doing too much of it, well, balance that out, but then serve together. It's always fun to serve together.
Yeah.
So.
And I think there's something that's very simple that we've talked about before. I don't recall us talking about it in a previous podcast, but there's something that we do. You mentioned it. You did mention the words. It might have been earlier, but there's something that we do in our life. We've been married for 46 years.
You got it right.
Got it right this year. And there's something that we do, and we've made a part of our life for the last 30 years, I don't know. And you mentioned it before. It's called porch time. Mm-hmm. And we take a couple days, times a week, where we go sit on our porch. That's why we call it porch time, where we don't have electronic devices. We don't have anything. It's just us. And we discuss the kind of things that we're talking about right here. And that's the place where if you feel like your spouse or someone in the family or something's going on, that someone's not paying attention to the right things, if you feel like someone, hey, they're kind of addicted to something, that's the place where we can talk about it.
Nothing is off limit.
Nothing's off limit. And we can bring it to each other's attention.
Can't get mad.
Yeah, so that we can deal with it.
Right.
Because very often when you are addicted to something, when something becomes an addiction to you, you aren't aware of it. You're blind to it. You're sort of, even when we talk about addictions, if someone is addicted to drugs, if someone's addicted to alcohol, whatever that thing is,
You can see that.
Other people see it, but they deny it.
Right.
That, I don't have a problem. I don't have this. I don't have that. Right. Well, it can be that way with a simple little thing. So that porch time allows you to sit down and go, hey, there's something that I've noticed lately.
You're on top of it.
Yeah.
Constantly you're on top of things with
Yeah, you've been spending an
whatever.
awful lot of time doing this, and it's sort of taken away from our family time. And that's the time to talk about this. So that might be a remedy. That might be a good point for people to just take a couple of days out of your week to sit down to talk about things so that you can bring those things to each other's
We've had
attention.
people tell us that they've started that and that it's been life-changing.
Right.
So
So can addiction to a good thing be bad? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It can be bad. And you can do something, even one of the example that was given here in the card was that you volunteer at church. We always want people to serve in church, right? I mean, we're always looking for volunteers. We want people to help. We believe that scripturally that we ought to be serving and using our gifts, abilities, and talents for the kingdom and all that. But yes, you can overserve. You can get so involved that you neglect your family and it becomes an addiction to serving. We don't want that to happen.
No.
We want there to be balance in all of this stuff. So you think that sort of answers the question?
think it does.
To the best of our ability?
To the best
We
of
spend a lot of time on telephones. Are we going to get a basket now and put our phones in the basket when we're at home? Yeah.
Well, I don't hate that idea.
You know, I mean, if we're perfectly honest, there have been times in our relationship where we go out on we have breakfast a lot in the mornings together, like having coffee, and we're sitting there.
Don't
and
be putting we in it.
we're both eating breakfast. I'm not.
We're eating breakfast.
We're eating breakfast, but I'll bring my phone out and lay it on the table, and
what do I say?
And
Is that important?
Is that important? Turn that off. So maybe I have a little addiction problem. My name is Ed, and I'm addicted to my cell phone. Maybe I need to say that. I don't know, but
at least you don't get mad when I say, hey, because
Yeah.
it's like you just said earlier, you're not even aware
right,
that
right.
you're on it.
Yeah.
I have to bring it to your
I've
attention.
been trying to explain to you. I'm just checking the weather for the day. Okay, but anyway, hey, we all deal with it. We all deal with it. Okay, but even a good thing, if you're addicted to it, can be a bad thing.
Right.
Be self-aware. Be willing to talk about it with the people that you love and care about, and that love and care about you. I think if you'll do that, it would be great. So, with that being said, we want you to make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you like our podcast. Tell your friends about it. If you have questions about things we talk about, ask the questions. If there's something you would like us to talk about, just send a request in and maybe we'll get around to it. Hopefully we will. Thank you guys again for listening to us. It's all about real people, real life, and real answers. Thanks. God bless you guys.